Good morning. Welcome to this second session. The language switch is in English now because we have many international hosts, and the session is about connectivity and smart mobility, and automotive research and smart mobility in particular. We are very proud of this day. We heard many things about MASA, Modern Automotive Smart Area, but the most important thing is create connections, create a networks of people able to discuss about the most important topics and able to promote technologies to the society, to universities, to industries, and to all the people involved in this beautiful topic. Anyway, we had some minutes of delay, and so we are ready to start. And I asked the director to start with the first two contributions. The first two speech of this session is the first one is from Professor Belingardi from Politecnico of Turin. And we are working a lot with the Politecnico of Turin because we share a common destiny, a common industrial destiny with them because of the presence of some of the most important companies, automotive companies in the world. And so he will tell us the role, the activities, and the topics treated by CARS. CARS is the Center for Automotive Research and Sustainable. And, well, the name is fantastic, but obviously is a very important group of people coming from the Politecnico of Turin working on smart mobility and connectivity. And the second one is a contribution from Professor Genta, is about the future perspective of mobility. And it's a great honor for us to host Professor Genta today. You know, Professor Genta is one of the first teachers of automotive engineering in Italy at the Politecnico of Turin, and many of the present engineers studied on his books, his university texts. And so it is a great honor to host him today with us, talking about the future of automotive, the future of mobility. But we are ready to start. So please, Director, transmit the first two contributions to our session. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Professor Giovanni Belingardi from Politecnico di Torino. I am the responsible for the Automotive Research and Sustainable Mobility Center that have been established at Politecnico di Torino. I will give you this morning a short presentation about what is the evolution that we are facing at Politecnico, in particular to give some answer for vehicles for tomorrow, to be prepared to a deep radical evolution that is already started, the new paradigm for mobility, and research and innovation at Politecnico di Torino. This is the outline of my presentation. After a short introduction about the present drivers and expectation in the mobility and vehicle evolution, I will give you some information about research and development to answer the challenges and needs for innovation, with particular reference to Politecnico vision on the academic on one side and education on the other side, mission of Politecnico. In particular, I will give you some information about the interdepartmental research centers that have been established at Politecnico, with that is the Center for Automotive Research and Sustainable Mobility. The present drivers and expectation in the mobility and vehicle evolution. Just a short overview, in particular, environmental impact, global warming, pollution, with particular reference to the greenhouse gases pollution and CO2. Toward a green evolution that is related to product, but is related also to plants. Safety and security is a second driver that lead to develop preventive, active, and passive safety, as well as the evolution from ADAS that are already somehow adopted in the vehicle architecture to automated driving solution. Connected vehicles are very important in order to make a reality the automated driver solution, new urban mobility and intermodality, and also related to new manufacturing technology in order to perform the above listed innovation paths. Politecnico vision on academic research. Typically, the departmental structure tackled with to go beyond the departmental organization and organize also some interdepartmental research center that are innovation hubs where researchers with different backgrounds can work together under the same roof, and so give the possibility of what is called cross-fertilization. We have had some top-down approach, system level and wide vision, and some bottom-up approach, component level enabling technology in order to organize these interdepartmental research centers. And you see here an overview of the interdepartmental research center that have been initiated at Politecnico di Torino, and in particular on the left top, my center, Center for Automotive Research and Sustainable Mobility. But you see that this structure is able to face a lot of different subject also related to the mobility problems. For example, PEIC, Electronics and Innovation Center, is dealing with some aspect related to the mobility and the vehicle. The other fundamental mission of a university is education. And we have a stream educational course on automotive engineering, and the innovation challenges given by this modern society ask for deeper knowledge and new skills that once again involve multidisciplinary approach. This is the reason why recently we have redesigned completely the educational path for the automotive engineering courses, both at bachelor and master level. The master level is now organized with 4 different streams. One is related to propulsion system, innovative propulsion chassis, innovative chassis controlled by mechatronic systems, connected and automated vehicles, and manufacturing and Industry 4.0. Just a few words about the Center for Automotive Research and Sustainable Mobility. On the left of this slide, you can see the initial strategic plan of the center, and you see that we have done in the landscape of a lot of different subjects that are relevant for automotive research and sustainable mobility. We have selected 5 different pillars, and we started to develop this particular subject in order to establish this multidisciplinary research activity. So you see green vehicles, affordability and competitiveness, safer and integrated mobility, urban mobility and logistics, and sharing mobility. On the right, you see in our idea, which are the new mobility paradigm that are target for our research activity. So lower fuel consumption and greenhouse gas emission, connected vehicles, innovative hybrid electric and purely electric powertrains, enhanced strategies for vehicle and vehicle motion control, electrified accessories, energy recovery, enhanced safety, and lightweight solutions. This is the expertise for hybrid and electric mobility, and you see that there are a number of subjects that can be the subject of an entire course. So internal combustion engine, battery system and alternative fuel, enhanced vehicle control strategy and electrified accessories, energy recovery, integrated design, synergy with autonomous and connected vehicles, system level optimization. Our center have had the possibility of making a big investment for new experimental laboratory facility, and you see here the test bench for conventional hybrid and electric vehicles that is coming at Politecnico. Thank you for your kind attention, and we are available. You see the email address for contacting us.
Good morning to everybody. I am Giancarlo Genta, Professor Emeritus at Politecnico di Torino. For years, I was responsible for automotive engineering courses at Politecnico. Today, I will speak about the future perspective of automotive in these difficult times we are living. First point, motor vehicles have given humans a freedom of movement which is unheard of in history. And the 20th century was based, and the vehicles were propelled by internal combustion engines using liquid fuels based on oils. Clearly, this model was not free from problems, and there were a lot of trends during the century to reconsider the model. These trends were not only dealing with the design of motor vehicles, so the technical problems of vehicles, but also about the ownership of vehicle and the whole economic frame in which the transportation system operates. From the viewpoint of technical problems, the two main goals, particularly of the last years, were dealing with electric mobility, electric vehicles, and autonomous vehicles. And the goal was achieving what is called electric e-mobility. Clearly, it has an aspect about propulsion, and about propulsion, there was a trend to improve the internal combustion engines, which could give way to improved internal combustion engine vehicles. This line was aimed mostly to produce what are called almost zero pollution vehicles, and also to improve a lot, to decrease the fuel consumption and then the emission of greenhouse gases. If the improving of internal combustion engine goes together with electrification, you have hybrid vehicles. Electric vehicles alone give battery electric vehicles, and this goal is still considered a medium-long-term goal. On the other side, you have improvement in control that was aimed first to help the driver. Driving assistance is called. In the future, we can go on this way towards advanced driving assistance. Vehicle, you achieve the long-term goal of autonomous e-mobility. This is about the technical autonomous e-mobility. This is about the technical part. About the non-technical aspects, we have a trend from property to use of vehicles. That is, the user in some way is no more the owner of the vehicle. The basic point is to solve these problems, but without losing the freedom of movement that the present model has produced, and also not losing the economical benefits that the automotive industry has brought to society. It is a commonplace that when the automotive sector works, the whole economy works. In the short term, today, in the short term, we must face this emergency due to coronavirus. Some people say that the emergency caused by coronavirus will change deeply our society in general. They say nothing will be any more the same after as it was before. And also that the transportation model we are using will come out changed by this emergency. Is it true? Will the effects of this emergency be lasting? For sure, there are lasting effects. We realized that our society is very vulnerable to public health issues, and a virus can really cause a lot of problems. So we need to give more importance to public health, for example. But these effects are unlikely, at least in my opinion, to have long-term effect on transportation. On the contrary, they surely will have short-term effect. And for short-term, we mean until a vaccine is available. And this is the increase of cost of public transportation of all kinds, particularly air transportation, much less train transportation, but also public transportation in cities. For example, underground railways will carry much less people per train, and so will have a much increased cost. So, from this crisis, we are coming out with a growing importance of private transportation. A lot of people will start again using their own car instead of public transportation means, particularly in cities, and also outside the cities. I expect that this year most of people who still will go on holiday will use their own car. And another point is that the trend to use versus ownership will be weakened by this, and ownership will have more importance. All these points will give some help to the growth again, or at least to the improvement of the automotive sector, also from the economical viewpoint. But in the midterm, we have to deal with problems related with energy. Some people say that our system of transportation is too heavy on natural resources, in particular about energy natural resources. Here we have a prevision of energy demand and how to satisfy the energy demand in 2 centuries, from the beginning of 20th to the end of 21st century. And we see that oil will peak somewhere here between 2020 and 2040. All right, this is not due to the fact that we are running scarce of oil. Very likely this is not true. I like to recall a joke, but actually was not really a joke, was a very serious statement by Sheikh Yamani, who in the beginning of this century said that the Stone Age didn't end because people didn't find any more stones. At the same way, the oil age will not end because we will not find oil, but simply because we will change our demand towards other type of energy, of prime energy. And he went on saying that oil will still be there, but nobody will care of extracting it. It will remain underground. We see that the provision are that renewable and nuclear energy will have a boom, coal energy will remain more or less constant, and oil and natural gas will decline. In the medium term, there is a lot of being said about electrification, but battery electric vehicles are not, in my opinion, a solution for tomorrow, at least for mass transportation. Clearly, it will be a niche solution. The point is producing battery electric vehicles in very large quantities at a cost that makes them affordable to many people, and also to produce them in affordable and sustainable way. The point is that we are not able for now to supply the huge quantities of electric energy and the huge power that is required to recharge battery electric vehicle. Battery electric vehicle makes sense only if you don't use fossil fuels, but we use as primary energy nuclear and renewable energy. We must not forget that battery electric vehicles were much used at the beginning of the 20th century. At that time, more or less 1/3 of vehicles had internal combustion engine, 1/3 had steam engine, and 1/3 were electric vehicles. Here we have some images, for example. If the first hybrid vehicle by Ferdinand Porsche, it was in 1899. At the same time, here we have a record vehicle, the first vehicle which went over 100 km/h, and it was an electric vehicle. And also mass production, the electric car by Thomas Edison in 1913. So you see that electric vehicle, we don't know whether it is a solution of the future, but certainly it was a solution of the past that was abandoned for many reasons, mostly the same reasons for which we have difficulties with them now. The CO2 of electric vehicles is, generally speaking, high and depends on what kind of source of energy we use to charge them. For example, in many countries which use mostly coal to produce electric energy, like India, China, and so on, electric vehicles get out more greenhouse gases than conventional or hybrid vehicles. In many countries, they are more or less equivalent. Notice that conventional and hybrid will decrease in the near future. Only in few countries like, I don't know, Sweden, for example, or Canada, that you have a lot of hydropowers, or like France and Russia, that have a lot of nuclear power, electric vehicles produce less CO2 than conventional vehicles. In the medium term, we will have the same trends that started in the 1960s, that is safety, increased safety, reduced pollution, and reduce fuel consumption, which is linked to greenhouse gases. Robotization is adding to this line. In these research lines, it is essential to take into account the whole life of the vehicle. That is, there are vehicles that are more complex, like hybrid vehicle, that may produce less pollution and fuel consumption when they are used, but they need more fuel and produce more pollution during construction phase. So they are really convenient only if they travel lots of kilometers. In medium term, we speak about improved conventional vehicles, hybrid, generally more electric vehicles, increasing driving assistance, increasing use of biofuels, and improved pollution control. On the contrary, I have many doubts about hydrogen, fuel cell, full autonomous vehicles in the short or medium term, and these vehicles that are very simple, light, small, so-called urban personal mobility vehicles, which remains, in my opinion, mostly a niche product, and also they are much less safe than traditional vehicles. Battery electric vehicles are a perspective for medium-long term, in which we can have also much more extended X-by-wire systems, and in the future perhaps also flying cars and autonomous vehicles. The same thing we have to speak about infomobility and intelligent mobility. And we can close with the idea of flying cars. That is not new. It started in the 1930s. And at that time, it was clear that the problem was not so much the vehicle, but the problem was the traffic control. Today we are going towards a new solution that is quadcopters or flying cars of that type. Here we have prototypes that some people have designed already, and here we have a recent achievement that is racing vehicles that are quadcopter, racing flying vehicles. This may be something for the future, and with this image we can close this part.
I say thank you to Professor Belingardi and Professor Genta, and as any good student, I have a lot of questions for them, but we have no possibility to do that today. So I'm very proud of the next speaker, that is Andrea, the next presenter. Andreas, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, I can see you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, very good.
Andreas is from Sweden, and I have to say thank you to being in Sweden, in particular with Leali that supported us during the last weeks in order to create and consolidate this important occasion of meet people from Sweden. We already discussed it during the morning. There are many similarities between Italy and Sweden, especially concerning automotive. The middle area is a high density area of independence and skills, as the Gothenburg area is. As the Sweden is. Andrea is head of the department of the continuing development at Vinnova, and so they have so many interesting projects and research about automotive. So I'll ask you to give us an overview, to open a window on your very interesting activity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Let's see if my slides will appear. Or perhaps I should put them up myself. Just give me a second here. Let me see. There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for having me, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Professor Giancarlo Genta, for your expert view of future mobility. And let's see if I can add on or in any way. At least I'll try to give you a Swedish perspective of innovation and future mobility. And I'm from Vinnova, which is Sweden's innovation agency. And our mission is to promote sustainable growth through funding needs-motivated research and innovation and the development of effective innovation systems. And we are a government agency under the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation. And when I say sustainable growth, for us, that's the same thing as the global goals for sustainable development. And the way we do that is that everything we do and all the projects we fund must strive towards the SDGs. And as an agency, we have 3 roles. We are a financier. We invest more than 300 million euros per year on approximately 2,000 projects and initiatives within research and innovation. And we are also the EU representative and the national EU node or contact authority for the EU framework programs such as Horizon 2020 and the now coming Horizon Europe. And we're also the government expert authority in the field of innovation policy. And what we try to do is to make it possible to develop and test before it is profitable. So we try to share risk with the mentors and researchers. And we fund research and innovation that is utilized and relevant to society. And for us, we believe that innovation occurs in collaboration, and we try to enable this. And how we do that is to promote collaboration and dialogue between the public sector, the businesses, the academia, research and education. And the goal is to find solutions for global challenges together in collaboration. And to give you an example of that, we have one of our largest innovation instruments, which is an example of collaborative innovation instruments, is the strategic innovation programs that we have in Sweden. And we have 17 of them, and they are all industry-led and are run in triple helix collaboration. And the ones that I highlighted here in a bluish color, they are all relevant for the mobility area. We have Lighter, which is focusing on lightweight. We have InnoVer, which is the large aerospace instrument that we have in Sweden. We have Infra Sweden, which is looking at the infrastructure. We have Viable Cities, which is looking at carbon neutral cities. And then Drive Sweden, which you will hear from the director from after me. Another large-scale instrument that we have in Sweden within this sector is the Strategic Vehicle Research and Innovation Program. And this is a partnership program jointly by the Swedish state and the Swedish automotive industry. And the program is funding research, innovation and development related to the environment and road safety. And the initiative involves research and development, funding totaling around 100 million euros annually, and half of which is publicly funded. And since the start 10 years ago, the program has funded research and innovation for more than 1 billion euros. And this has been distributed over more than 1,000 projects. And over 500 organizations have participated in the funded projects. And if I'll talk a bit about future mobility, I guess this picture is, for some of us at least, the way we want the future of mobility in our cities to be like. But at least prior to the current COVID-19 crisis, this is more of what it actually is looking like in our cities today. And the transport system accounts for one third of Sweden's emissions in total. And in order to achieve a climate neutral and healthy mobility, we must transform the transport system, which is extremely complex as it is a built-in physical, technical, economic, and social system that we have developed and integrated in our lives and societies for over 100 years, not perhaps 1,000 years. And if we look in Sweden, we see that we need to lower the car, passenger, and truck traffic by 30% to meet the climate goals by 2045. And the big question, of course, then is how should we be able to accomplish that? And what we see that we try to accomplish in Sweden in transforming this to a sustainable mobility system, we need to, in addition to technological development, we need to develop new services, new business models, new policies and regulations, as well as changing consumer and travel behavior. And by doing this, if we accomplish reaching a climate neutral transport system, this has positive synergy effects such as reduced land use, increased road safety, and not least increased public health through more active mobility and less air pollution. And now Professor Giancarlo Genta gave us a good overview of the current trends, and this is at least pre-COVID-19 the way we look at the transformative trends now in this area. And what we see the trends affecting the industry and the users are, of course, the switch to electrification, automation, and digitalization, which also generates new services and a sharing economy. However, as the professor said, we see a change here in the shifts and that this is slowing down now since the current crisis, and the individual car usage is so increasing again, and public transportation is decreasing. For society, we see a lot of different trends as well. The strive for fossil freedom, the urbanization, of course, the increase in e-commerce and globalization, which I now tilted a bit here in the text, since we see this as well. After the crisis, the current pandemic, what we see is the global value chains is being questioned. And this is something that I think we'll see changing in the near future, and we'll have more regional value chains or local value chains instead. Okay, so what we think is necessary in order to achieve a sustainable society is innovation with a system perspective. And for us, that means including technical, ethical perspectives, as well as business models, procurement, regulations, and policy, as well as behavioral science in the projects we scope. And a thing we like to call system demonstrators is an example of this. Large-scale demonstrators, including all of these perspectives, being tested in the real world. And my colleague from Drive Sweden will talk a bit more about this after me. To close my talk, I'd just like to say that we see that the industry in Sweden is a vital force for the transition and leading way. Examples here, we see that we are mobilizing through collaboration and starting to build new value chains. We have a huge battery factory in the northern part of Sweden. We have large-scale research infrastructure, and we have the electrification and technical shift being driven by the Swedish OEMs. And by closing, I'd like to just take the opportunity to say that I believe that we need to combine the current pandemic crisis and now are in with the crisis of climate change. We can't lose focus on the climate crisis. We need to invest out of this crisis and the recession to a sustainable transition and a green recovery. And even though we see the quick changes we've made in society due to the pandemic, they are not sustainable over time, but they still show the power and the force we have as a society to actually change. And by that, I'd like to say thank you so much, and please, you're welcome to contact me if you'd like. And by that, I'd like to hand over to Sofie.
Thank you so much, Andreas, and thank you for the last comment you wrote on your presentation. Recession is an opportunity to change many things that we can improve today. So this is a very good message for us. But sorry, we are in a hurry because of a short delay, and so I asked Sofie to prepare her presentation about Drive Sweden. Sofie is the leader and managing director of Drive Sweden. Are you there, Sofie?
Yes, I am. Hello. Can you hear me?
Okay, so?
Can you hear me?
She's arriving. Thank you so much for your participation. And please give us your vision about the next world, the next future from Sweden, from Drive Sweden perspective.
Yes, and would you like me to share my presentation myself? Okay, here it is. Good. Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for the invitation to present at this conference. I will talk to you about the Swedish Strategic Innovation Program for digital, automated and shared mobility systems that we call Drive Sweden. As Andreas was mentioning before, it is a program, a strategic innovation program funded by Vinnova, Swedish Energy Agency and Formas. And our vision is to help Sweden take a leading role in creating future mobility systems for people and goods that are sustainable, safe and accessible for all. And our task is then to drive this development by creating and demonstrating efficient, connected and automated transport systems. This is a picture of our partnership. It's about 146, I think, today. It's increasing all the time. And it shows a little bit the complexity of the mobility system and the difficulty of knowing what will the roles be in this system in the future. You can see here that it's everything from large OEMs to small technology providers here in the middle, large and small, a lot of transport providers from both freight, public transport and private cars, taxis and so on. It's academia, large university and research institutes, and the cities and authorities, of course, consultants, but also actors that you normally don't think would engage in mobility systems, such as banks and insurance companies that are also need to see what their role will be in the future system. And what is also interesting is to see that we also have quite a large international partnership. So it's partners in 16 countries. And of course, this is very good because these solutions we can't develop in isolation in Sweden. We need to have also international collaboration. So I hope to also in this seminar maybe raise some interest among Italian actors so that we can find some more collaboration in the future. So how do we work? Well, we are what we call a cross-functional collaboration platform, and we run a lot of program activities where we stimulate networking and for actors to meet in thematic seminars, conferences, etc., and by that also creating a lot of knowledge building among actors. And this forms the basis for the project activities that we run. So we have we can fund projects through open calls, and we can also run strategic projects, and all of this is based on what the needs are among our partners and where collaboration is needed. This is where we focus. And we have organized our work in 5 thematic areas, and all of these components are necessary for handling the transformation ahead of us. And we have heard a lot about this already today. So it shows that this is really what we need to work on. And so we are not focusing so much on the technology development itself, but rather on the system around it. And I will go through these pieces of the puzzle and just give you a glimpse of what we are doing. And the first thing then, and what is really fundamental that we realized when we started the program a little over 4 years ago, is that the data sharing among actors and the digital infrastructure is fundamental for a future autonomous system. So what we have done is that we have invested in what we call innovation cloud, which enables us to it enables our partners to share data among each other in our innovation projects. So it can be both using it for connecting different types of vehicles, autonomous vehicles, but also in services and mobility as a service and things like that. So it's accessible for all our partners, and something that we think is very good to stimulate innovation. We also have a lot of projects, of course, in this field. A lot of it focusing on control tower mechanism, and we have used it in one concrete project with Einride, which is the Swedish startup with an autonomous electric truck. And the other two projects there on the right, I'm happy to say that they will be present in the afternoon of this conference. So you will hear more about them in detail from Universes and Carmenta, who participate this afternoon. So I won't go into any details. But I can just say also that all the results from our projects are available on the Drive Sweden website if you are interested to learn more. Business models, as we also heard, especially in these times, the robustness of the business models have been put also in light. And what we have done is that we have set up what we call a Drive Sweden Business Model Lab, which focuses on these different themes that you see here: electrification, logistics, automation, and MAS. And it's really to dig deeper into the challenges connected to business models. And the electrification case, for example, deals with autonomous or automated electric terminals. And the logistics one is about the consolidation center, which runs, but where the business models really need to be developed more. So here we go deeper where we see that there are problems. And we also run a large project, or as Andreas introduced before, a system demonstrator. And this is a very interesting one, focus on mobility as a service. And here we call it a system demonstrator because we will test a completely new business models on 400 test users, which are employees at an area in Gothenburg called Lindholmen, where they work and study a lot of people. So this is a service which integrates a lot of different modes of transport, as you can see here, in one app. And of course, it's not the app development that is the challenge, it's the integration of all these services and all these different business models. And it will work for both travel at work and or work travels and private travels. Yes. Going into another very important area for the transformation is the policy development. And we have in Drive Sweden what we call a policy lab, a little bit similar to the business model lab. We identify challenges in the projects that we run. We analyze what is the problem, and we dig deeper into when we try to solve it. And what we are currently working on and have worked a lot on is really to also help in the process and to get permits for the testing. So here you see the Einride track that I mentioned before, which has been run on public roads, the first test. And we also have a case in autonomous buses in confined areas. We're looking at vehicle data to see, could we use accident data? Is that allowed to film, for example, if you pass an accident, and how can we use that for societal benefits? And a lot of legal questions connected to the Lima project when it comes to car sharing and tax regulations that are not adapted today for the future services, as just to mention a few examples. The society planning also needs to go hand in hand, and we work a lot around this question: how can digitalization and automated transport system create benefits for society? And we run a forum for this in Sweden, and very closely related to that are the questions on how to engage the public and the end users. And we run also this is maybe the most research-oriented. How can we design solutions with instead of for people? So this we do a lot, but here also to involve the public is, of course, the test and demonstration projects that here they can really test and see it in real life. And this is why we also heard before, this is extremely important that we can do this test and demonstration in the real environments. So to summarize, I just like to say that when collaboration works as its best, it's when we build on actual problems, real problems, and particularly the industry needs. We need to gather the actors in the same room, and we need through this collaboration, we can increase understanding about our different needs and the different time horizons that we have in the public and private and academic sector. And we also see the need for a neutral function or a neutral program that we are, because these types of collaborations do not happen by themselves because they are so complex. So by that, I thank you all for the attention, and I look forward to more collaboration with Italy in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofie. For sure, we will have some more collaboration. And now I'm very happy to introduce a contribution from the Detroit area. Thanks to the Emilia-Romagna region, we have an antenna in the United States, and we use it in order to create collaboration and opportunities for universities and companies from Italy to the United States. And as you can think about, the Detroit region is one of the most important regions for automotive in the world. And we arranged some meetings for the next June in occasion of an important fair over there. Due to COVID-19, it was not possible to move there, but we are very happy to host today a contribution from that region. So I kindly ask the director to share with you the video contribution from Will Butler. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Will Butler. I'm a Senior Business Development Manager with the Detroit Regional Partnership. First and foremost, I just want to hope that you all are safe and healthy amidst the current COVID-19 crisis. I know that both Detroit and Italy have been hit particularly hard by this pandemic, and I just hope you all are safe right now. I'm sorry that it stopped us from being there in person, but very grateful to the Motor Valley Fest for organizing this virtual platform and for giving me a few moments to speak about how the Detroit region is looking to build its next 100 years of automotive leadership. So first, very quickly, I just want to share a little about who the Detroit Regional Partnership is. We're the designated regional economic development agency for the Detroit region. Our mission is fairly simple. It's to attract new jobs and new investment from around the globe to the Detroit region. And we do that by acting as a one-stop shop, completely complementary, completely no cost to companies that are looking to expand to the U.S. market and set up new operations and facilities in the Detroit region. You know, Detroit and the Emilia-Romagna region, we actually have a lot of common heritage. And, you know, in Detroit, we go back to Henry Ford and the birth of the Model T and the birth of the modern assembly line. And we talk about being automotive leaders for over a century, for over 100 years of being on the frontier of this industry that's global, that's innovative and massive. And, you know, people know Ford, GM, and Chrysler. I mean, that's what's made Detroit the Motor City. But I think even sometimes people within the industry don't always understand the breadth and the density of the automotive industry that exists here. You know, there's actually 21 OEMs with either a headquarters or a technical center in the Detroit region. That is the greatest global presence of OEMs in the world. You add on top of that 96 of the top 100 suppliers to North America, a network of 1,800 suppliers in total, all of whom, both the OEMs and the suppliers, have invested $41.5 billion in the state of Michigan. That's more than anywhere else in the United States. That's more than Mexico. That's more than Canada. It's easy to see why we still rank as the number one U.S. state for automotive production. On the right here, we've mapped out the total North American production broken down by country. The United States is 66% of all production in North America. In the United States, the Detroit region is actually 15% of that total. We produce 1.7 million vehicles annually across 8 OEM assembly plants in the Detroit region. There's actually 11 in the state of Michigan in total, but 8 in the Detroit region. And you can see some of the makes and models that we produce here. Obviously, the very popular, at least in the United States, the Ford F-150, Jeep Grand Cherokee, and of course a classic Detroit muscle car, the Ford Mustang. So, you have the greatest global presence of OEMs, 21 OEMs, a network of 1,800 suppliers, and this middle bar is just a small snapshot of those suppliers. But the industry's changing, and there's a lot of new players coming into the market. You have startups, you have Silicon Valley companies that are looking to pivot to market. You have startups, you have automotive industry. And we just did a study with a consultant, and we're very happy that, right now, 50% of global OEMs and suppliers are working on those new technologies, are working on autonomy, connectivity, and of electrification in the Detroit region. But we know that isn't guaranteed, right? I mean, this industry is going to change more in the next 10 years than it has in the last 100. So the question for us is, how do we leverage our historic automotive expertise to create new programs and new initiatives and maintain our position as a global mobility leader and build our next 100 years of automotive leadership? So now I want to walk through some of the programs and initiatives that, from the government side, from the private industry side, from the academic side, how we're all working together to create an environment where these new automotive technologies can thrive. So, I think it really starts first with policy. Michigan very early on basically opened up the legislation and created the friendliest laws in the books to test autonomous vehicles. You can test on public roads. We let truck platooning happen early. Nevada recently caught up, but Michigan was actually the first state to do this. You also go into the infrastructure side. We have 500 plus miles of roadways that are deployed with vehicle to infrastructure technology, where OEMs and tier ones and companies are testing on that vehicle to infrastructure. They're using that embedded technology to run pilots. And, proving grounds and test sites, right? Those are usually private, just for the company that builds them to test their own vehicles. But again, working together across the government, across nonprofits, across academic and private sector, we've actually created 4 public proving grounds and test sites. It started with M-City at the University of Michigan. This is a 32-acre test site in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It was the world's first purpose-built proving ground just for connected and autonomous vehicles. After that came the American Center for Mobility. This is actually at the former Willow Run plant, which created bombers during World War II. After that plant was deactivated and then demolished, it's now become a 500-acre testing site, comprehensive testing site for connected autonomous vehicles. It's got tunnels, it's got off-road, it's got a highway loop, it's got suburban and urban environments, all for testing. But, it's not just about the policy, it's not just about the test sites, right? The pipeline here is incredibly important, because the industry doesn't succeed without a pipeline of talent that matches what the future needs are going to be. So, Michigan Mobility Institute, I think this is a great story. This is a nonprofit group that actually partnered together with Wayne State University here in Detroit to build a Master's of Mobility degree at the school that's going to launch next year. Of course, you have the University of Michigan, a world-renowned educational institution. Their Transportation Research Institute is currently conducting with faculty and students 1,000+ research projects in vehicle safety, sustainability, connectivity, autonomy. But just separate from the graduate level and the university level, in the United States, you also have community colleges, these 2-year degrees, vocational schools. And our community colleges have really been thinking through, what does the future of that workforce look like in a new automotive ecosystem? So Macomb Community College and Washtenaw Community College both set up new centers to train that future workforce. What does a technician look like with intelligent transportation systems? How can we get people trained in automotive cybersecurity? And so they're thinking through that side of the workforce. So from top to bottom, across the talent pipeline, people are prepared for what this new industry needs. It's also about an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So, I've included some stats here on venture capital and the number of startups receiving venture capital in Michigan, but I think really the best validator of this is going to be our success stories. So I'd point to a company called Rivian. Rivian is a startup born here in the Detroit region. They're an electric vehicle company that makes pickup trucks and SUVs. They recently became our fourth unicorn company, a company with over $1 billion valuation. And that was led actually by a $500 million investment from Ford, but also a $700 million investment from Amazon. So a really great validator of the startups coming out of the Detroit region. A lot of this in the entrepreneurial ecosystem is being supported by a program at the state called Planet M, and how unique it is to have a state that actually has a dedicated team just for mobility that's there to act as a concierge for companies. They've actually helped facilitate over $90 million in new revenue for companies by building connections between both traditional industry and new technology companies. They have a physical landing space in Detroit where they subsidize rent for companies that want a location here in Detroit. And that location also provides mentorship and leadership from OEMs like Ford and tier ones like Bosch and Denso. They've helped facilitate through the use of their grant programs, actually 80 active pilot projects across the state in new automotive technologies. So I think a lot of this is why we're seeing, a lot of success here with companies recognizing why they need to be in Detroit for these new technologies. A great example of this is Waymo, Google's self-driving car project. They selected the city of Detroit after a competitive search where they looked at Arizona and Texas for a production facility that would help integrate the software and hardware in Jaguar I-Paces and Chrysler Pacificas. And so again, they realized they had to be in Detroit to do that it required Detroit's expertise in order to do that, and they couldn't do that on the West Coast of the United States. You can look at Ford, who's just invested a massive amount of money, $740 million across 5 buildings to create a connected and autonomous vehicle campus. This is going to have 5,000 employees all working on connected and autonomous and electric vehicles. And while the rehab on the buildings is currently ongoing, they're actively doing testing right now on Michigan Avenue, the street right in front of the train station there. And last but certainly not least, of course, is one of the biggest automotive stories of last year. FCA launched a new assembly plant in the city of Detroit, while also investing billions of dollars across their existing production facilities in the Detroit region. All of these projects together are about $4.5 billion and around 6,500 new jobs. I think this was a transformational kind of project, and really it was a continual validator that Detroit isn't letting off the gas pedal in terms of its position in the automotive industry. So thank you for taking the time to listen and to, I hope this was helpful and insightful in hearing how the Detroit region is thinking about the future of this industry and its own position within that industry. If you have comments or feedback or questions, I've listed my contact information here, my phone number and email. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I wish you all safety and health and a great time at the rest of this Motor Valley Fest event. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you. Now we are ready for the next keynote speaker. This is another important contact created by Arter. Arter is the innovation agency from the Emilia-Romagna region. And in the last days, we created this important connection to the Ontario region that is a particular partnership with us here in Emilia-Romagna. So I'm very happy to introduce you to Rad Kadri. Well, he's a senior manager and one of the most important agency for innovation in Ontario. So please join me on the floor to give us your vision about autonomous vehicle and the next future of technologies all around the world, not only in Ontario, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning for me. Good afternoon to most of you. It's been fantastic to listen to the folks before me talk a bit about what's going on across the world in their regions, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this. So my name is Rod Cadry, as was mentioned. I work for OCE, which is an organization in Ontario that works with the government of Ontario to deliver on a number of initiatives, one being the government of Ontario's Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network. And so what I'm going to do is talk a bit about, in general, to situate for the group a little bit more about Ontario's automotive cluster, and then why we're pushing forward, similar to other jurisdictions that have a very strong automotive history. We're pushing forward into the future of what this sector looks like and what the movement of people and goods will look like as technology becomes more and more relevant and introduced into that. So to start off, most people don't know, and so we like to give people a bit of a highlight of what our sector looks like. Ontario is on, of course, Canada is bordered with the U.S., and Ontario has one of the busiest border crossings, and Windsor with Detroit. So our colleagues from Detroit are there, and so as a result, we also have a very significant automotive sector, and so I've shown it here because it's important to notice that we do produce a significant amount of vehicles every year in Ontario, and it's a big part of our history, and it continues to be a big part of our history. And there are 5 OEMs that manufacture vehicles and produce vehicles for the global market in Ontario: FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, Ford, General Motors, Honda, and Toyota. So, we kind of do this thing back and forth a little bit with Michigan and Ontario, but in 2008 we were number 2 vehicle production. We did about 2 million units assembled in Ontario, and I don't know if you can see the slides very well. If you can see just down on the left corner, I hope everybody knows where Ontario is situated in Canada, but it's a major economic, of course, force in our country. Here are some of the vehicle mandates that are produced in Ontario to give a little bit more of an opportunity for everybody to kind of understand better what we make in our province. And so, as you can see, General Motors makes a number of their vehicle platforms here. So does FCA, so does Toyota, and so does Ford, as well as Honda. Along with any jurisdiction that has a significant manufacturing and production of vehicles, comes a very strong supplier base, and I think that's an important part of our ecosystem. Is we have over 700 suppliers that are situated in the region where the production happens, and so there are some names listed down there. Along with those 700 auto parts suppliers, we also have about over 500 tool, die, and mold facilities. So we have a significant cluster not only of production, but also of folks that already and have been for a very long time producing new technologies and solutions and systems that go into the global industry. We talk about our automotive manufacturing and our supply base, but the other important part to note for Ontario, so if you see the map that we've shown here, the bottom left is, in the red circle, is where the automotive manufacturing cluster is in Ontario. So it goes, and you can see Detroit in the bottom left hand of that map. It goes from Windsor, Ontario, all the way up to Oshawa, and maybe a little bit over when it comes to the supplier base. But what we also have is a very significant tech cluster, and so that's one of the unique opportunities in Ontario is from Ottawa to the Waterloo region, and even actually below. But the significant part of it is between the Waterloo, Kitchener-Waterloo region, and the Ottawa region. We have a number of tech companies, and I think we think that there's over 20,000 IT companies that operate in Ontario, from big to small. And so you can see the map there, and it's a significant cluster there. So, and we're also the number 2 financial services next to New York. Toronto is a major financial hub in North America. So with all of these ingredients, and just like any other, it's only right that we have a great opportunity to go after what the future of the movement of people and goods will look like. And so as a result of that, the convergence of those 2 clusters, technology and automotive manufacturing and supply, you can see that a lot of OEMs, of course, that have presence in Ontario have made significant investments in auto tech and mobility. And here's just a few to name them. General Motors has a significant, of course, manufacturing presence, but also a significant R&D and product development presence in Ontario. They have a facility in Markham where they do a lot of autonomous software development. There's a whole other a number of other things that are happening. Also, they're turning a portion of their facility facility in Oshawa into an AV test track for the company, and so they go along that. These are just, like I said, just a few of the investments in the last few years that have happened in technology as it relates to the future movement of people and goods, and they continue to happen. And there's a few others here that are not they're not actually mentioned. So all this gives rise to, as I mentioned, we have a significant technology cluster, but what we also have is a very strong entrepreneurial ecosystem. Ontario has become a hotbed of new technology, of innovators, of entrepreneurs, people that are creating new ventures, going after new opportunities. And what we're also seeing is a number of companies, of course, as others may be seeing as well, a number of companies that have a technology that they've entered a market in one sector, but are now seeing the applications into the mobility space as the vehicle and the movement of people and goods becomes more digital and more technology oriented. So we estimate, and it's very good. We have over 250 startups, scale-ups, and companies working in this space in Ontario that's relevant to the world that we're all talking about here. There's some logos just to name a few, but you can't get 250 on a slide deck. So the Ontario government's approach. The Ontario government, of course, talking about a number of things, launched a policy called Driving Prosperity, which is their vision for the future of the auto sector. And the 3 pillars are below, and if you're interested, you can find on the Ontario government's website. A big part of the innovation pillar of their policy is the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network. And the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network, the name is a bit focused on autonomous vehicles, but what it really is it's Ontario's push to support the development and commercialization of new technologies and solutions that will support the future of movement of people and goods, and so to be safer, faster, and more efficient. So although the AVIN is called the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network, it's all technologies that will support that. So it's infrastructure, it's connectivity, it's different solutions that create integration between modes of transportation, and we're even seeing some very interesting stuff where we're seeing health technologies that are finding applications in the vehicles. So there's a lot of interesting and great things going on, and so the government their initiative is the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network. AVIN, of course, as anything, as any initiative, the push is to commercialize new technologies. And the thesis that we've proven in Ontario is that if we are developing the technologies of the future, we're also the jurisdiction that's testing, piloting those technologies, which also leads us closer to adoption and deployment of those solutions in our transportation system, in our municipalities, and on our roadways, to reap the benefits that we stand to gain from these technologies, which, of course, I think the major driver is safety for everyone. And so it's the champions on behalf of the Ontario government are their Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, and the Ministry of Transportation. So they're both very closely linked to AVIN, and they're the ones that champion on behalf of the Ontario government because it's very relevant to their space. It's an $85 million initiative, and it's focused on a number of aspects of how we're going to push forward in the future of this space. And so one of the programs is an R&D partnership fund. And what we are doing there is we're ensuring that our startups and our small and medium-sized companies are working with potential customers to do co-development and to do piloting and demonstration of those technologies, hopefully leading to a commercial opportunity with that potential customer. So that can be an OEM, it could be a tier one, it could be another partner, it could be an IT company, it could be a municipality, but the purpose is that we want industry-driven solutions. We want to support industry-driven solutions, but it does require private sector investment. So they can ask us for up to $1 million for projects, highly competitive, but they do need to put more investment into that, so that we ensure that it's appropriately funded and there's an appropriate investment of industry's time. So it's a highly competitive program that's been very successful, and we've seen a number of very interesting partnerships that have come together, and that leads to testing and piloting of these solutions with municipalities in Ontario, with transportation agencies and other partners, with post-secondary institutions, that allows us to learn and to grow as a province and continue to drive forward in this space. That's certainly supported by the Ministry of Transportation, the Ontario government's push in terms of an AV pilot regulation, which they launched a number of years ago. Actually, Ontario was the first province in Canada to come out with regulations for AV piloting. And actually in 2019, we've updated those pilots. So it was very supportive regulations that support this initiative and support industry's push in Ontario to develop new technologies, and Ontario's ecosystem to test those technologies and pilot those technologies. As I was mentioned before, and I think everybody's aware, talent is a big piece of the future of any sector. And so we are continuing to push that in this space. And Ontario's is ripe, and we're lucky to have very high-class institutions, post-secondary institutions that produce very highly qualified individuals. And so through our talent development program, we support them to transition from school to work. So as a result, we support these highly qualified individuals in collaboration with industry. So it's co-investment always with industry. To hit those individuals to work with our small and medium-sized enterprises on their projects, and help those individuals build the skill sets that they need, or refine the skill sets that they have, so that they can succeed in the future, and at the same time supporting our companies with that high quality of talent, and in turn growing our talent in our province. As a part of the initiative, and what Ontario is doing, is we have what we call regional technology development sites. And what we did was, when we launched this, we went across Ontario and across the regions in Ontario, and we looked at regions that had a capacity for automotive, and then we looked at regions that had a capacity for technology. And what we asked is that those regions organize themselves and coordinate themselves. So bring in the post-secondary institution, bring in the incubators, bring in the accelerators, bring in the municipality, bring in the industry that is relevant in that area, bring in all collaborators and form a regional cluster to support small and medium-sized enterprises to build new and innovative solutions for this space and help them thrive and grow in our regions. And we also asked them to identify an area of priority for them. And so that does not limit those regions to only working in those areas. But what it does is it helps us to build capacity in those regions for those areas in the area that they've decided to pick and where they see their strength. That actually makes it available across all of Ontario. So hence the network piece. So we're working as a province on all of this. And so the regions that do have sites are, of course, the Windsor-Essex region, which has a focus on cross-border technologies and solutions, as well as cybersecurity. We have a site in the Kitchener-Waterloo region, which is focused on 3D high-definition mapping and localization. We have one in the Toronto region, which is focused on, of course, artificial intelligence for connected autonomous vehicles. We've got one in the Durham region that's focused on human-machine interface and user experience. And we've got one in the Ottawa region that's focused on connectivity, CV2X. So again, as I mentioned, there's a multifaceted, objectives for those regions. It's to grow regionally and help the small and medium-sized enterprises in the region grow and thrive. So startups, entrepreneurs, we want more technologies to be developed, but it's also to build a capacity that is made available to the entire province so that we work collaboratively as a province to develop these new companies, to test these new technologies, and to pilot these new technologies, and to share the learnings and the information across our province. And of course, with all of this, it's important that there's a place where these technologies can be demonstrated. And what we've done is we've created demonstration zones. We've worked with our national association that supports suppliers, and of course for them, the supply base is changing, it's expanding, and new technologies and new companies are starting to be suppliers to the automotive sector as it transitions into and expands into this new space, which is automotive and mobility. And so the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association is our lead on the demonstration zone in Stratford, Ontario, where in a real world environment, safe and I guess organized, we make available vehicle platforms, and not just vehicles, cars as we know, and automotive solutions like light vehicles. It's also heavy duty vehicles as well. It's also transportation vehicles. And so the intent is that once you develop a technology in Ontario and you're looking for a place to have a vehicle, access to a vehicle, have access to a connected environment that's controlled and safe, so that you can show your customer how that technology that you've been working so tirelessly on now works. And then hopefully that will lead to a more advanced commercial discussion and lead to a sale. So it's really a site when your technology is ready to integrate into a vehicle and demonstrate it to a customer. And then, of course, very important, we're leveraging our bad weather in Ontario through our winter tech development program. Other jurisdictions have bad weather. We're owning it, and we're supporting the development and testing of solutions to overcome harsh weather conditions, mainly winter weather conditions, but harsh weather conditions. So we want to have a niche as well in the area and leverage our weather to support companies to develop those solutions that will overcome these types of conditions and as propel the industry forward when it comes to that. And this is all wrapped up, of course, by the Central Hub. And the Central Hub is a platform that connects and coordinates all of Ontario. AVEN is the Ontario government's push for the future of automotive mobility, and all of the activities that we're doing in Ontario come under the AVEN umbrella as that push. And the Central Hub is the coordinating force across the province. It's the force that acts as a concierge for companies and organizations that want to collaborate with partners in Ontario, that want to find opportunities working with others in Ontario. It's the group that creates the connections and maintains the network and the best practice sharing, the information gathering, the data gathering, the data sharing, thought leadership, and of course driving Ontario's leadership forward with new opportunities. So here's a snapshot at the regional sites, as you can see, where we showed the automotive cluster and also the convergence with the tech cluster. This is a snapshot of that. And here is a snapshot a bit. I will note that Ottawa's got our site in Ottawa's got a public and private test track, and there's other activities and platforms that are being made available. And here's some vehicles. Sorry, I've been getting the queue. And just a quick success story. I'll make it very quick here. Sensor Cortec, great company, spun out of a post-secondary institution in Ottawa, working with Vallejo, global leader, developing a new technology, and they're working in co-development through AVEN, and that partnership was made and the connection was made through AVEN to develop a new solution. And so that's the idea. Ontario small and medium-sized startups working with global leaders to develop new technologies and solutions. Sorry, I ran a bit over time. And so here's my contact information, and by all means, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and if you need to get a hold of me, my contact information is on our website.
Thank you so much, Rad. We have some minutes of delay, so I quickly asked to open the last presentation, just a few minutes in order to recap what MASA is and what MASA does for as services to companies and to people involved in autonomous and connected vehicles. So please share my presentation if possible. Thank you. A very quick idea about the modern automotive smart area. Is important to understand that Modena is the center of many different activities that are realized here, and is an important point of interest for developing many activities. I'm facing some troubles with the connection, so I'm not sure you are looking at my presentation. And but anyway, I try to give you where we are. We are a small University of Modena Reggio Emilia, and is a small university compared with other big universities all around the world. And we have one strength, that is we have many different departments and many different competencies that we can put into the automotive sector. And I guess that this is a real turning point for us in order to create multidisciplinary groups able to front any challenge from different points of view. And together with the companies of our region, and together with the Emilia-Romagna region institution, and together with the ARTER, that is the innovation agency here, we are able to manage also complex problems. And just a few years ago, we had any opportunity to experiment, to test such kind of technologies. We understood that that was a problem, and we invested a lot in a few years in order to create a living lab open to people to be prepared on the new skills, on the new competencies, and investing on giving companies the possibility to test their solution in a well-prepared scenario, and able to enhance the knowledge about how to realize experimentation. I have to say thank you to the Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Innovation, because they supported us from the first moment we proposed them our ideas. And they asked us to be a node of a national and international network of people sharing data, sharing ideas, sharing best practices. And as a most city, together with a small companies, sorry, we were able to start many different activities. So the modern autonomy smart area is not the only opportunity we have today here. I'm very sorry. I'm very proud to introduce many other activities, as for instance, MUNER, the Motor Vehicle University of Emilia-Romagna. That is another big opportunity for people and students to stay together in order to investigate new technologies. Well, in order to investigate new technologies. It was the first time we were able to put around the same table so many direct competitors as the important names, the important brands that you can see here in the present slide. And so MASA, MUNER, the Automotive Academy, UniMoRe, are all ingredients of the same idea, of the same vision. And what we are able to do today is create opportunities for talented people. As you can find in some philosopher in the past, we don't believe in the destiny, we don't believe in fortune. We think that we need talents and we need opportunities, and we need to put them together in order to exploit our capabilities. And that's why we created an important connection between infrastructures and assets here around Modena, around the city. And at the university, we create a space devoted to research, to simulation, thanks to many instruments that we have for our students and for our researchers, and they can use it in order to exploit innovation. And the second important part, the second important leg of Modena Automotive Smart Area is the Autodrome of Modena. There we have the possibility to test in a product space the most important technologies for connected and autonomous vehicles. And we have the possibility to stay there. They are open for people coming from universities, and I have to say thank you to them for that. And they invested a lot in modifying the track, in modifying the buildings in order to host us in many different occasions. And the last part, what is the most important, I guess, is the city. I would like to underline that at the moment we have not any funds supporting us to invest in the city, to invest in the research. We have not any treasure that we can use in order to pay infrastructure for innovation. The idea here was to maintain current and connected the different strategies of all the partners of the project. For universities, research is the most important point. For companies, innovation and business is the most important point. For institution, the idea of improve the life of citizen is the target that they want to reach. And every partner has its own budget to invest for that, and we try to create a common vision to use them in a synergic way. And that's why we created the Modern Automotive Smart Area. Today, we are funded by the projects that we are able to create there. We are funded by companies that want to invest there, and we are able to offer our young people the most important opportunities to prepare them for the future. And every important project is not facilities that are important, but is the people that works on that. So we are very proud of our group of people. You can see here just a little part of them, but we have a connection between different departments and different young, talented researchers and students that are ready for the next steps, are ready for the future. So we are very proud of them, and we are very curious of looking at them in the real world in the next years. But just a few words to introduce the next part of the last presentation, and then you all are invited to the demo session where we are able to demonstrate what you are doing here. So I asked to Marco Fainello to join me on the floor and to give us a brief overview, please, about the services that we are able to offer into the Modern Automotive Smart Area. Okay. Marco is having some connection issues, I guess. I don't know if you have the possibility to join us. Smart Mobility Agency is a temporary association of companies that was born by MASA. All the companies involved here are part of the project since we started many years ago. And as you can see here, Denise Engineering, Automotive Modena, and E-Consulting are the real pillars of our experimentation here in Modena. And thanks to them, we are able to offer some of the most important services for companies that are interested in testing their technologies there. Along the last 3 years, we created into an area of the city a place, an open lab where to test technologies. But maybe Marco join us again. Are you there, Marco? Sorry for these troubles we are facing now. So Marco is having some more troubles. I don't have any presentation on my screen now. Okay. So, okay. So come back to the presentation. Sorry for that again. Well, we created some infrastructures ready for offer roadside services, and as I told you, give the possibility to test edge and cloud technologies here in Modena. Just a few words about what we can do. We can collect information from a serious fog node, but we have the possibility to describe it in the next session, thanks to Professor Marco Bertogna, who is the head of the lab devoted to such kind of experimentation. And we have the possibility to look at these services working during the demo session in the afternoon. And this is a first tailor-made smart area we are able to use. As you can see here, Automotive Modena invested in order to change the track to give companies the opportunity to have a large space to test new powertrains solution, but also new controllers and new ADAS system to be used to support research activities. And as I told you at the beginning, the collaboration between universities, companies, give us the possibility to have a special view on training and education. Denise Engineering started many years ago in offering training for professionals, for engineers, in order to give drivers the most important competencies and skills in order to be able to realize experimentation on the ground. And together with them, we are able to increase the possibility of companies to create people able to experiment. The ministry told us this morning that what we need now in Italy is experimentation. And that's why we are working on these topics. We have also some particular offers that we can give in order to enhance the possibility of use smart roads and to use the city for collecting data, for collecting information, and to offer best services to people in the city. And I'm very happy to underline, to stress that many of the demo we are going to look in the next session are prepared together with companies we met thanks to Business Sweden and thanks to our collaboration to the Sweden environment. This is a real example, is a real output of our collaboration. And today we are ready to offer different case study, different use cases we prepared, and some of them are ready to be repeated and to be exploited for having much more opportunities for testing real vehicles. Together with the Ministry of Transportation, we are waiting for the next guidelines to be used in order to implement experimentation on public roads. And every year, the Modern Automotive Smart Area Day is an opportunity for us to have a direct comparison of different regulation all around the world. And every year we have the possibility to discuss about the best way to experiment technologies in our cities, in our space. And but I prefer to close such a session with an important delay. Sorry for that, but I would like to close here our session and to give you the opportunity to stay connected for the next demo section that is ready to start. So thanks again to all the attendees. Thanks again to all the presenters of this morning. And again, stay connected, stay with us to have a real proof of what we are able to do here in our area and what our partners are able to do in their labs, in their cities. This is an open window to the world today for new technologies, for connectivities, for autonomous driving. Obviously, we are ready to give you all the details you need in order to create new contacts, in order to enlarge our international network of people working together. Thank you again, and I close the session here. And again, stay connected, stay with us for the next session. Thank you so much.